Hey, thank you for joining us for our weekly coaching sessions that I'm going to be offering from now on for everyone inside the Sovereign Brotherhood community. And the way that I'm going to begin this session is first with a little bit of a theory, moving into a breakthrough session. These sessions are recorded. If for some reason you don't want to have your face shown or something like that, let me know. But my intention is to help to create value for the community, for those that aren't so familiar with masculine frame. So one of the questions posted in the community, and I've got a whole series of questions, is around masculine frame. Many people aren't so familiar with the concept of masculine frame, or certainly perhaps in the way that I defined it. And to be frank, I had been doing men's work for something like 20 years, or maybe about 18 years, I think it was. And I didn't really understand what masculine frame was for myself until the last 2 years of my journey. So the concept of masculine frame is something that was quite elusive for me. The way that I typically define masculine frame is having an internal frame of authority, which means that you consider yourself the authority, the dominant creator of your reality. And you have an internal frame of reference, which means you seek from within, you self-source, you don't seek externally for what you're denying within yourself. So that would mean your validation, your love, your acceptance, your acknowledgement. You give it to yourself first, and therefore you're less vulnerable for seeking that externally. And you start to have this nourishing relationship with yourself. You start to place yourself as a priority, and you take care of your needs in accordance with your values, and you take care of your needs physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, such that over time you become nourished and fulfilled. And as you meet life's challenges, you hold yourself, you view them as opportunities to strengthen yourself and to grow, because you've got a clearly defined outcome that you're moving towards. You've got a vision for yourself that you hold, and it's an extraordinary vision that you work towards creating yourself as. And so that path of intentional creation, of optimizing your identity to experience life as this, this extraordinary version of yourself, as you move towards that, you'll be meeting challenges. And so the masculine frame is built through challenge. It's built through tests. It's built through moments of occasional suffering, not something you choose, but as you're learning to navigate, to build your strength, to build your experience, to build your resourcefulness, you will meet challenges that at times will cause pain. And so therefore you seek to both acknowledge and reward your progress, and seek the support of a brotherhood who hold you towards those desired outcomes. And you reflect and you go within and you find ways to nourish and nurture yourself as you meet these trials, tribulations, challenges. And over time, your frame gets built. Over time, you become stronger. Over time, you build confidence, because as you hold integrity, as you hold your actions in the alignment towards this greater version of yourself, you will change, you will become stronger. And so all this is built on the notion that men are made. And so what we're really doing is we're intentionally building ourselves as men. We're intentionally becoming the extraordinary versions of ourselves that we envision and dream ourselves to become. And we test ourselves, as you mentioned, along this journey, by how we're able to stay on that path to building ourselves with integrity and consistency and alignment. And we observe when we fall short. We observe when we find distractions. We observe when there's resistance or subconscious obstructions. And we don't blame ourselves. We take the feedback and we seek to grow beyond those obstructions and resistances. So another important part of the masculine frame is looking at the subconscious programming, the indoctrinations, the influences that we had in our childhood, traumatic scenarios, the examples that we were given, and we see which of those are conforming to this greater, more extraordinary version of self, and which of these are not supportive or even destructive to this version of self. And we seek to shift our mindset and shift our identity by releasing those obstructions and traumas and bringing ourselves into congruent alignment with the greater expression that we have within us. So that's a kind of a higher level overview. Now, within those subsets of frame and frame testing, there's different ways that frame is expressed, and that's frame can be expressed and built and also tested sexually, you know, and in relationship with the feminine, how confident you are, how much you seek a woman's validation, how much you are in your own authority and your own direction in life and your own leadership, and how easily do you give that up, how easily are you seduced off track. Even, yeah, in a sexual way, how are you able to maintain your energy within yourself versus give it away without really having any control. It includes a general sense of authority and leadership and your dominant presence. How much do people respect you and look towards you for your guidance, your direction, your decisions? And how easily do you give up your truth? How easily do you become compliant and submissive to other people's truths? You know, how much conviction do you have to this identity that you're creating, and how easily are you swayed to other people's perceptions of how you should be? So developing this idea of this inner alignment and truth. Other elements include emotional. How reactive are you to your circumstances, especially emotionally, versus how are you able to remain stoic, strong, and centered in the presence of other people's emotional volatility? Another aspect is mental. How are you able to remain strong and focused and present versus how easily is your mind taken into distractions, into distortions, into spiraling negativities, versus how can you remain non-attached and focused on what will serve you? So these are all different subsets of frame. And others even further is financially. How well do you do in creating and protecting, providing, and serving as well, which is another aspect of the masculinity? How well do you do your job effectively? And are you able to maintain a calm stillness in intensity in each of these areas, whether it's financial or otherwise? And finally, on the physical side, how do you build yourself up into a strong, dominant man who has a physical presence, who is able to protect, who's able to do your functions physically really well? So these are all elements. And so masculine frame really requires, in my experience, quite a strategic approach until you start to just habituate patterns that automatically start to build the version of yourself that you've intentionalized yourself to become. So there's a little bit of legwork in deciding, well, how do I wish to experience this world, and who would I need to become in order to experience that reality? And then what would be my next best step towards creating that? And then once I'm on the path to building myself, I start to eliminate those things that are not congruent aligned, and I start to double down on the things that are, both the activities and the people around and the behaviors and thought patterns that are congruent with the man that you've chosen to build yourself into. It's an amazing journey. And then helped and assisted by others as well. So there's just a little bit of a question, an insight into masculine frame. And the next part that I'm going to go into of these weekly sessions is, where does our subconscious obstruct or complement this progression, this path? And so I'm going to open this up, and to you, Carl, what do you see right now as being the biggest obstruction to what you wish to experience in your current life? What's holding you back right now?
I actually just talked about this with Alexander in a call I had with him a little while ago,
Mm,
earlier this morning, and the big things that came up were me having limiting beliefs about what I'm capable of and what I'm deserving of.
right. And this is a huge one, by the way. The concept of deservedness. This concept of deservedness ultimately comes from a limitation placed on self, that we don't deserve the amazing possibilities that we've intentionalized for ourselves. So we want to have this extraordinary life, making all this money, physically fit, attracting beautiful women, and living our best life. And then some part of ourselves, once we decide that is something we want to experience, comes up and says, "Oh, but you can't really have that. You know, you're not this. You're not experienced enough. You're not successful enough. You're not wealthy enough. You're not tall enough. You're not." And these limiting beliefs or aspects of perceptions of self that are diminishing or restrictive, in the case of undeservedness, it comes from the core or root emotion of shame. Shame says, I am something, and for the reason that I am, and the I am is something that isn't good, isn't complimentary, isn't deserving. It's because I've done this in the past, I've made a decision about who I am. For that reason, I don't deserve this positive outcome. And what's interesting to me is that can be from childhood experiences where maybe the child makes a decision when a parent is not fully available, when a parent has, you know, a certain degree of unavailability in terms of emotional connection or loving connection. When a parent is not consistent in both their attention, their physical presence, and their love, the child may make the decision that because the parent has other priorities, that there's something wrong with them. There's some reason that they're not deserving the wholehearted attention of their parents. There must be something that I did wrong. This must be something wrong with me is actually the deeper shaming part. And because I didn't get the love that I desired, there's something wrong with me. And therefore, I don't deserve the full totality. I must not deserve the full totality of love that I desire. And that can also go with other subsets like finances. There might be the parents didn't have the financial prosperity that as a background, they were poor, for instance. And the child may not have got the certain toys or presents or books or uniforms or trips or whatever it is the child wanted to feel that they belonged and fitted in. And because the parents just didn't have that physical ability, instead of in the immature mind of the child decides the reason that they didn't get the money that they needed to buy these things or go on these trips or whatever they might have desired, there must be something wrong with them. There's some reason my parents aren't giving me what I want. Therefore, there's something wrong with me. Therefore, it must mean I don't really deserve what I desire because otherwise I would have got what I desired. And so these programs are installed unconsciously and installed with less than full information, meaning we, for some reason, think, and the final thing, this is where it gets even crazier, it's not always just direct physical experience, although it often becomes that. Sometimes there is a underlying belief or trauma or pattern of behavior that's inherited, meaning we attempt to try and take on the suffering, the shame of our parents in a futile attempt to heal it. Another way you could describe it is if the parents are holding some shame, some limitations, some weaknesses, and they're unwilling to acknowledge it, and they're unwilling to improve upon it, the child thinks that they need to conform to the family in that way to belong and be accepted. So the child says, okay, in our family, the rules of our family are we don't have money. We complain about money. We believe that money's hard to come by, that you have to work hard for money, that there's never enough, that there's whatever the rules of the family are. The child adopts those rules and takes them on as their own, and then believes that that's a necessity to belong. So in order to belong to our family, I need to believe that money's hard to come by, or that there's never enough, or that I need to work hard for money. And so the child develops those as part of its identity. Now, that, of course, runs into conflict with later in life when you wanted to become a framed man who protects, provides, and serves. All of a sudden, in the providership channel, you're like, well, in my family, money's hard to come by, and it's something we complain about, and it's difficult. So that makes you ineffective in your role as a man to provide, because it's a limiting belief. It restricts your abilities. So having this conceptual understanding can help to take off the blame and shame that we place on ourselves. See, often these things that come in, we're like, we blame ourselves. We're like, well, I'm not making the money I want. There's something wrong with me. I feel bad. I feel fear. I feel uncertain. I feel doubt. And and ultimately, a lot of what you're doing is repeating the patterns of your parents, just on autopilot. I feel ashamed. I feel like I'm not accomplishing what I should. Be curious to know how much of this has been a recycling of the thoughts of your parents at some stage, or your interpretation of those experiences. So the way out of this mess, this maze, this quandary, is to form new beliefs. And the way we do that is we make different decisions about those life events, different decisions, the unconscious decisions that we made that are now limiting our current experience. So let's try going into, I'm not going to do a past life regression or anything like that for the purposes of this particular session. I'm going to make it, we're going to stick into this lifetime. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you the core, what lets you know that you're undeserving? Now I can give you some guidance on this one.
That may be helpful. English isn't Englishing right now.
That's okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask the question again. This time, I don't want you to, I just want you to just consider for a second, what lets you know that you're undeserving? There you go. So what I want you to do is I want you to look up and to your left and move your eyes like a tracking ball on a mouse, a micro movement. I'm talking less than a millimeter to your right. So no big sudden movements, just the smallest, tiny incremental movements. That you've made a big movement there, but you're actually in the right, you're actually almost in the right place. So we're going to do another, going to move again to your left, micro there, right there, right there. Then allow your subconscious mind to show you the image of the event that is taking place where you first decided your undeservedness. Just allow your subconscious mind to show you an image and just describe what you're seeing. You're about 4 to 5 years old.
Was around the time my family I believe shortly after we moved from Ohio to Georgia.
Hmm.
And because my brother had just been born, we went from having two, both parents with income to one parent with income. So we had to pull back on
Right, right.
a lot of expenses.
You nailed it. And so when that happened, what decision did the little boy version of yourself make? When there wasn't
Some
enough, when your parents had to pull back, what decision did you make?
Sometimes we have to sacrifice things that we want in order to survive.
There we go. So there was a decision the little boy made that he would need to sacrifice to survive. Isn't that interesting? Now that you've seen that, how often does this show up now? So the strategy is to just label yourself as undeserving, but the I should say the interpretation, the observation is, oh, I must not be deserving, but it actually is just there's a deeper thing, which is I need to sacrifice in some way to survive. So how much of your life have you been encountering sacrifice, giving up things that you want for others in order to survive, deferring your deep needs and preferences for others? There you go. You just saw something. You just made some big connections. Now, I know a little bit about your past. I know about you working in places that you didn't want to, all this. Now you know where those behaviors come from. They come from the idea that you need to sacrifice to survive. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to increase the possibilities that your subconscious has, the choices that it has available to it. Is it possible to survive or even thrive without sacrifice?
Absolutely.
Is it possible to survive or thrive with sacrifice?
Yes.
Is it possible to not survive and thrive with sacrifice?
Yes.
Is it possible to not survive and thrive without sacrifice? You might just be standing still and doing nothing, but you might not be thriving. Might not be sacrificing anything. So, yes.
Yeah.
Is it okay with your subconscious mind to now create the possibility in your personal field and experience of moving beyond survival into thriving without the need to sacrifice?
Hell yeah.
Good. Okay. So that includes that now is like, wow, the subconscious has a new choice. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that moment when your little brother came in, when your parents had to go from two jobs down to one income, two income streams down to one. Just before the decision where the little boy made the choice that it needed to sacrifice to survive. So just before that moment and any moments that led up to that moment, just come back to that at the age of 4 or thereabouts, just before that event. And what new empowering decision can the little boy make? If he didn't need to sacrifice anymore to survive, what could he do instead?
Achieve anything I want.
He could what?
To become and achieve anything that I want.
So you could achieve anything that you want. So then, but what's the new empowering decision? That's the new belief. I can create and achieve anything I want. But what's the new I am statement? What kind of person could achieve that? It could be, I am resourceful. I am successful. I'm accomplished. I'm capable. I'm deserving. what I am statement best represents that would bring the best resolution that would spontaneously enable this particular limitation to be dissolved and a new empowering alternative created. I am. Finish your sentence.
I am valued and constantly provided for.
I am constantly provided for. Nice. So as you connect to the little boy in the 4-year-old, just when that moment was happening, I want you to gift that little boy this awareness as a little gift. You know, I'm constantly provided for, and you can hold his hands and you can transfer this through your eyes into his. I'm constantly provided for. And he's also going to see you as a mature adult. He's going to see you growing up. I'm constantly provided for, because the truth is in some way you are, because you wouldn't even be having this conversation towards me if you weren't. We're just now seeking an even more optimal expression of providership and being provided for. I am always, say it again, I am
Valued and constantly provided for.
I am valued and constantly provided for. What color represents that?
I'm
What
not sure
color?
what the name is, but it's like a bluish pink hue. I'm not sure what to call it. Like a if you could
Bluish
combine
pink.
blue and pink.
Right. So
I've
I'm
never seen
valued
it
and constantly provided for. I'm valued and constantly provided for. Let that bluish pink color fill your entire being at that little boy, inside at the age of the little boy, until he's overflowing. And once that bluish pink color fills his body, as it does so, it instantaneously integrates every single life experience, every belief, every aspect of his identity into this new perception, identity, and awareness of I am valued and I'm constantly provided for. So every moment you color that leads it up to this specific moment, you can color with the color pink, bluish pink, and inclusive of that moment, and let that moment overflow into your parents, into the environment that you were at the time. Everything now colored with that bluish pinky color. Now color that color pink in every direction around you, including into your future, such that when you grow up, you will grow up through every life experience that followed that point. Any moment where you felt challenged or you felt anything less than feeling consistently provided for and valued, it will now spontaneously integrate with this color bluish pink into the new identity, perception, awareness of I am valued and consistently provided for. So as you grow up, every life experience and event, any time that you felt or experienced any limitation, no sooner do you become aware of that experience of limitation, that it is now colored with the color bluish pink. And then as that happens, it spontaneously transforms, is assimilated and integrated into your new identity and perception and awareness of I am valued and constantly provided for. Continue to grow him up into his adolescence and teens. Every life experience as it comes to you, any challenge, any adversity, that wherever you felt anything less than valued and provided for, you're now able to color it with the color bluish pink spontaneously and instantaneously, such that it conforms to this new identity, perception, awareness of I am valued and constantly provided for. All the way into your late teens, into early 20s, every life experience, every life event, anytime you felt anything less than being consistently provided for and valued, it's now colored with the color bluish pink, and it spontaneously integrates into this new identity, perception, awareness now of I am valued and consistently provided for. And now you can come all the way to the present moment, sitting in your car now where you are having this conversation with me. And you can think of a time in the future where the old problem might have hindered you. Anytime, any event where you might have judged yourself to be valued less or not provided for, or any fear or any uncertainty or any doubt as such, you color that color bluish pink into your future. And all life events, all life circumstances are colored with that bluish pink color and spontaneously integrate into this new identity perception awareness and become a congruent and consistent reflection of this new identity perception awareness, such that all is now conforming in your identity and in your personal field and in your experience to I'm valued and I'm consistently provided for. So you'll see the money coming consistently. You'll see yourself being valued and appreciated, receiving fair remuneration. You'll see the acknowledgement as you value yourself, as you feel deserving of the acknowledgement, the love, the appreciation, the money that flows to you. You experience even more of that every day in every positive way, as it all now conforms, has been colored with the color bluish pink. And so all now conforms to this new identity perception awareness. Your experience now is one of being valued and being consistently provided for. When you're ready, come back to the present moment. Having preserved the deepest levels of your being in your identity perception awareness, that you are valued and consistently provided for. What do you notice?
Maybe it's the clouds out here, but it genuinely looks like there is a blue film over everything.
Does it look brighter? Does it look clearer?
In a way, it's more of a physical sensation that I'm experiencing. It's this sort of, I don't know, weight isn't the right word, but it's the closest I can get to describing the change that I am feeling as
Beautiful.
close physically as possible. It just so happened that from the call I had with Alex earlier, I actually have a black and white, but it's a picture of young Carl
Yeah.
right before we moved from Hawaii to Georgia.
Mm. Nice. Mm. So this is the way the subconscious is reprogrammed. This is the way we find the events where we made those decisions. We recode them, we give them new meaning, such that you are no longer constrained by any limiting decisions or limiting events, limiting beliefs that continue to shape you from your subconscious. And instead, we make room, we create new possibilities and opportunities, we make new decisions, new empowering beliefs, complementary and congruent and aligned with the identity that you're creating. In your case, you're experiencing more deservedness and more consistency in your providership and your receiving, and more of you feeling deeply valued at your very core. So that now that you have this complementary foundational belief that's part of your identity, that you're valued, you'll start to see more and more of that start to show up in your life. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Carl, not only for being in attendance to this session, uh, but also having already spent some time in the container with us, having done some deeper inner work, having done some development on yourself and your awareness of masculine frame. And I can certainly see each time I see you stepping more and more in your confidence, your presence seems to be stronger each time. And yeah, I admire you on the path that you're on. Thank you so much for being part of this session.
I appreciate the encouragement as always.
Yo. So this is going to be weekly. By all means, you have the ability to take advantage of this. I encourage you to bring others into the community that you feel could benefit from this. And yeah, it's powerful work, as you would have seen. So thanks again. Appreciate you being here. I'll see you in the next one.